Step 8. State the conclusion. Restate the decision using simple and non-technical terms. Now, we restate the decision using simple and non-technical terms. Without using technical terms not understood by most people, state a conclusion that addresses the original claim with wording that can be understood by those without knowledge of statistical procedures. Now, wording the conclusion. For help in wording the conclusion, refer to the table or flowchart which will be below, which lists the 4 possible circumstances and their corresponding conclusions. Note that there is only one case that leads to wording indicating support for the original conclusion. If you want to support some claim, state it in such a way that it becomes the alternative hypothesis, and then hope that the null hypothesis gets rejected. So let's take a look at the table on the left first, and then we'll look at the flowchart on the right. Okay, so here's the first scenario. Okay, if the original claim does not include the equality sign, meaning the equal sign, and you reject the null, then we would say that there is sufficient evidence to support the claim that then you would write the original claim. The next scenario, let's say that, again, the original claim does not include the equal sign, and this time you fail to reject the null, then we would say that there is not sufficient evidence to support the claim that of the original claim. Okay, next, let's say that the original claim does include the equal sign and you reject the null hypothesis, then we would say that there is sufficient evidence to warrant rejection the claim that, and then you would state the original claim. So again, now it says warrant rejection when it includes the equality and you reject the null hypothesis. Okay, and then the last scenario here is the following. So if the original claim includes the equality or the equal sign and you fail to reject the null, then we would say that there is not sufficient evidence to warrant rejection the claim that than your original claim. Now another way of looking at this is on the right side, which is the flow chart. So you would start here. You would start and it says, does the original claim contain the condition or equality, meaning the equal sign? If it is no, then we would say the original claim does not contain the equality, and then it becomes the alternative hypothesis. Now, do you reject the null? If we don't reject the null, and we fail to reject the null, then we would say that there is not sufficient evidence to support the claim that. Now, if we do reject the null, then we would say that there is sufficient evidence to support the claim that of the original claim. Now, this is the only case in which the original claim is supported. Now, if we come back up here and say, does the original claim contain the condition or the equality, meaning the equal sign? If we say yes, then the original claim contained the equality. So, do we reject the null? If we said no and we failed to reject, then we would say there is not sufficient evidence to warrant rejection of the claim that, and then write the original claim. Or do you reject the claim? If we reject the null and we said yes, we reject the null, then we would say that there is sufficient evidence to warrant rejection of the claim that, and then write the original claim. And this is the only case in which the original claim is rejected. Now, except is misleading. Now, we should say that we fail to reject the null hypothesis instead of saying that we accept the null hypothesis. The term accept is misleading because it implies incorrectly that the null hypothesis has to has been proved or is somehow being supported, but we can never prove a null hypothesis. The phrase fail to reject says more correctly that the available evidence isn't strong enough to warrant rejection of the null hypothesis. Multiple negatives. Now, final conclusions can include as many as 3 negative terms. For such confusion conclusions, it is better to restate them to be understandable. Instead of saying that there is not sufficient evidence to warrant rejection of the claim of no difference between 0.5 and the population proportion, a better statement would be this: until stronger evidence is obtained, continue to assume that the population proportion is equal to 0.5.